Hey guys, welcome back and thanks for joining. We're going to talk about offline raiding a little bit. And if you don't know what offline raiding is, it's essentially waiting for someone to go offline in the intention of breaking into their base and looting them. And, you know, if you've ever played any of these survival base building PvP type of games, there's several out there, several popular out there. Offline raiding has always kind of been an issue. And, you know, in my opinion at that point, once you offline raid someone, it's no longer PvP because there's no player aspect involved on the other side. It's PvE because you're going up against whatever the base defenses are and any creatures, but you're not actually going up against any players. And so let's be clear to say that offline raiding is PvE. It's very PvE. It's not PvP at all. And not to say whether it's right or wrong. I think that I find typically people frown upon offline raiding. And in this game in particular, it's causing a huge issue with people just getting discouraged to play. And I want to tell you, if you get offline raided, don't stop playing the game. Just, learn from it, whatever you can do, move on, build again. If, you're having trouble, move servers, whatever. But don't let it dissuade you from playing. Now, I do think that the developers need to address the offline raiding issue because it's happening on multiple servers that I've heard of where basically just one really big group of people who are all in the same house are steamrolling servers and just offline raiding all the bases, all the decent bases. And there's no one left on the server to kind of oppose their power. And so the reason well, there's a couple things here. One, I think that I think that if you want to be able to do damage to someone's base, I think you have to have a Raider's Stone. I'm not saying that's the way the game is now. I think, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. Is that you cannot damage a player's base unless you are within the bubble of a Raider's Stone. And the reason that I say that is because no matter how well you build your defenses, when there's 5, 6, 7, 8 people just bombarding one area of any part of your base, they're going to break through that particular area, and then from there just keep chipping away at your base. And that's, without a Raider Stone. That's just with siege damage on their spells. And so I think that if you required a Raider's Stone to be placed, that would basically, it would slow down the wiping of bases, for one. Another thing is it gives people a chance to react, to actually defend their base. And also 8 hours, if you don't have somebody on within the 8 hours that it takes for that Raider Stone to activate, then at that point offlining a base while you have the Raider Stone activated, not to say it's okay, but I think that it kind of takes the edge off of it a little bit. Because if someone places a Raider Stone on the map, no matter where it is, you can see it on the map. Like, as a player, I could open the map and look at that and see the Raider Stone and see how much time is left until it's activated. And it takes 8 hours to activate. And so if someone wanted to raid, they would have to at least, once they have the mats, it would at least be 8 hours before they could raid someone. And then after the 8 hours, they could raid. And there's on top of that, there's a couple of other things that go into that. So for one, they would have to plan the Raider Stone around a time that, their housemates will be on in order to basically damage a structure faster than it can repair itself. Because that's another thing. It's very easy to defend if there's only one person hitting your structure, because if you're in marble tier, your structure can repair itself. But if multiple people are bombarding your base, then it's gonna, at that point it's gonna damage your structure faster than it can heal itself, which is good, because you don't want a base to be unraidable, right? But if someone places a Raider Stone, let's say they place it at night when the person's offline and the person who they're going to raid doesn't see it until they log on the next day. Well, 8 hours passes by. Let's say it's first thing in the morning. The guy getting raided doesn't hop on in time, but that person who placed the Raider Stone may not be able to get enough people together from his house to be on at that time. So they would have to strategically time when they're going to raid. And that way, it's going to do a couple things if they end up going this route. Instead of the Raider Stone being a raiding buff to where it actually allows you to damage player structures. One, it's going to make PvP more of a thing than raiding. Not to say that there'll be more PvP than raiding, but right now the focus is people raiding bases offline. I mean, that is the primary for that. That's what happens the most right now in regards to player versus player. Whereas if we have the Raider Stone, where you have to have a Raider Stone activated in order to do damage, that means there's going to be a lot less offline raiding, and people will be able to build up and get better gear, and there will be more PvP in the world itself. You know, there'll be more people going for rifts because they're not worried about rebuilding their base that just got wiped. There'll be more people, you know, going for certain objectives in the world that collectively bring together that PvP. And so, you know, I don't see an issue with my proposal. 8 hours, yeah, it's a long time to be able to wait on something. But at the same time, I think that it's going to overall give a better player experience for everyone. Because let's be honest, right now, the offline raiders, for the most part, aren't, you know, disappointed that they can offline raid. They love it. They're doing it to... They're offline raiding instead of raiding you while you're online so that they can easily get loot and resources to make their own base better and to make sure that you cannot build up bigger than them so that they have, you know, supremacy over the server. And so, of course, that portion of the people, which every server has those people, that portion is not gonna, you know, speak up against offline. But yeah, I've been offline raided a lot since this game came out, and I'm not complaining that I have, and I'm not salty about it. It's just I cannot be on as much as, you know, other people who are on all the time. You know, I have to go to my job. I have to do obligatory things outside the game, you know, real life things. And so, not to knock people that are on the game all the time, but it gives, obviously they're going to always have the edge, but I cannot have someone on all the time to defend our base. And, you know, of course, a lot of people are in that boat. And I think the majority of the people who bought this game are probably in that boat because they have money to buy this game. So they probably have a job. And so that's my thoughts on it. If they're not gonna do something in that direction, then they need to buff up the turret damage in this game. And they need to buff up the turret damage. They need to buff the range, the turret range, because right now it's pathetic. And they need to buff the turret tracking. Because the fact that you can just fly by a base that's fully populated with turrets, you can fly by it on a Phoenix just like this. Not a single turret would hit me. Not one turret would be able to hit me because I'm faster than the tracking of the turrets on this Phoenix. Which, this is the fastest tame in the game, but let's be honest, it's not that fast. It's not like incredibly fast, right? Like, I think there's broomsticks that are faster than the Phoenix. So that is an issue. You know, not to say that they need to have an aimbot. I think that for a turret it should have aimbot. If it has line of sight and it's within range, I think that the turret should absolutely hit you. But maybe that might not be the way the developers want to go, which is fine. But they need to at least do something about the tracking or the velocity of the turret of the turret projectile, something. Because it's just absurd that a turret can't hit a Phoenix. I mean, you know, that is, the turrets are the things that protect your base. It is the most important thing to protect your base, right? Now, I will give the developers credit on another coin. On the flip side of the coin. The warding obelisk, when it is maximum upgrade, max upgrade, it does really good player damage. I mean, solid player damage. And so, to me, that's a, you know, okay. Yes, the turrets are really finicky, but at least there's no way to cheese that obelisk, because when you're in that sphere of influence, you are taking damage over time on your player, regardless of if you're on foot or on a tame. Your character is going to take damage. Again, you can use different buffs. You can use armor buffs. You can use health buffs to help with that, but it's still a constant damage, so that someone can't just sit there within that sphere of influence and do damage. They have to at least take breaks or something. But yeah, those are some of my ideas. I remember before I had an idea that at the time sounded good, but in retrospect, not so much. It was basically just, instead of the turret shooting in that, you know, in its range, just have a pulsing orb. And the issue with that is that I think, yeah, it's going to cause performance issues because of too much effects going on. But on that same token, they could dial back the effects a little bit, so that if there's so many in a certain area, and other games do this, that it basically shows a very subtle effect. Because, you know, once you get your base maxed, I don't want to say maxed out, but beefed up, you know, there's going to be a lot of turrets on it. So those are just some ideas. Tell me what you guys think. I just think from a community standpoint, we want some sort of offline raid prevention. Maybe not necessarily offline raid protection, because people abuse that, but something that makes offline raiding difficult, you know, like nearly impossible to do against an active house. You know, just like I recently got offline raided. I had a very legit base, all maxed out turrets, over 100 turrets, 100% turret coverage, minus if you tried to cheese the turrets, of course. And so that, they were able to offline that while I was sleeping. You know, I went to bed, got up first thing in the morning, got on the game, to no base, right? So in that small window, and, you know, they were able to completely wipe my base. And it's not just that it had, you know, 100 plus turrets. Not just that not just that they were all max level. All my turrets were maximum upgrade. Not just that I had a warding obelisk with max upgrade, but also that the base, as in like the floor of my base, was completely honeycombed. Completely honeycombed. I mean, straight walls and diagonal walls all around it. And the throne, every compartment around my throne, completely honeycombed. And the compartment that the throne itself was encased in was 100% ornate, and it had several turrets in that little compartment. And yet these people were able to completely foundation wipe me, essentially, while I was offline. So if that, you know, you guys saw how compact my base was and how compact the turrets were. If that's not a sign that we have an issue with offline raiding, then I don't know what is. You know, in order to wipe that base, they should have had to properly fob up against it. You know, they should have had to build a base with a raider stone and actually properly raid it. Which, of course, you know, like I said, I'm not super salty about that, because it was kind of a blessing and a curse, because I did want to play Star Wars Fallen Order, but I wasn't going to play that game while I was playing this game and maintaining that base. So that base getting wiped gave me a good opportunity to play that game. I can feel that I'm pretty close to the end, but I don't have the urge that I had to play that game when I first started. So like now I can take time to, you know, I can play that game a couple hours, come over here, grind, do some stuff, hop back over that game, which I just found out that I'm off on Friday from work. So Friday, if my current base, which I'll show you guys, I'll probably show you Friday. I'm not ready to show yet, but if my current base doesn't get offline, then I will show you what the outline of it is going to be before it's beefed up. And again, the design of this base, it's going to be very familiar to you in regards to how I design my bases. But where I'm placing the base, I'm doing a completely different strategy. And I think I told you guys in one of the last videos that we combined houses with a few other people on the server. And so one of their guys that does the building built in a location, and I was like, I like this location, the idea behind it. But what I would do differently is ... and then I'll show you if I unveil the base on Friday, which as long as I don't get wiped, then I will be able to unveil it on Friday. But anyway, I'll tell you what, guys, tell me what you think in the comments. You know, what are some ideas you have? Remember, this is PvP. We can't make it impossible to raid, but we definitely need something to prevent offline raiding, right? I will tell you, I've mentioned Odin in a couple of my videos. It's a guy I've been playing games with for years. He's on a different server, but he said that on his server, there's basically like a mega house that if they catch anyone offline raiding, they just wipe their whole house. And so that's kind of cool. Anyway, guys, thanks. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And until next time, thanks for watching.